Anyways, we're going to be teaching today how to replace a compressor on an LG refrigerator. Now, in the class that we do there in Houston, shameless plug, we basically want to teach you from, if you know nothing at all, to where you get to this point. Now, when you get to this point of where you're going to be working on a refrigerator of this type, you've already gone through at least 3 weeks of the class. You've already learned how to turn the torch on, how to deal with the torch, how to weld. And I will interchange, for example, the word weld and the word solder. So if I say solder, I'm talking about the same thing as welding on here, okay? Now, brazing is the same thing. Now, one of the things that we're very particular about, and I'll spend the whole day teaching you how to solder or weld or braze correctly. I don't like to see anybody use a whole stick of silver solder on one joint. I think that if you use more than 6 inches on an entire refrigerator, you use too much. Secondly, for the most part, my favorite saying whenever you're brazing or soldering is if it's not pretty, it ain't right. So you want to leave a weld on there that is clean, well done. Now, on a refrigerator, typically like this one, and you're close, left the door open, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going. You got it. I'm going to go ahead and close that door. On this refrigerator, on the LG refrigerator, the compressor is a little bit different. They have changed the compressors on some of these over the years. They had problems with the linear compressor. This one has already been diagnosed and decided that the compressor was bad, so we ordered a new compressor. Now, anytime that you're going to go into a customer's house and you're looking at a refrigerator, whether it's LG, any brand that you go into, the first thing that I will tell you, always ascertain how old the refrigerator is, and then make sure there's not any warranty still on the refrigerator. If the refrigerator has a 10-year warranty on the compressor, call LG. LG will supply the compressor. You can still charge for putting it in there, but you want to make sure that the customer gets their coverage. If you're dealing with the monogram and it has a 12-year or 10-year warranty on the compressors, make sure that you know the age of the refrigerator. The first thing that I will always tell all of my students, you never want to do anything to hurt the customer. If you go out there on a refrigerator that has a 12-year warranty, you put a bullet tap valve on there, the manufacturer will not work on it even if they pay them to go work on it. On a GE monogram, GE is very particular. If it's under warranty, somebody opened it up, they won't work on it even if you pay them. So, you're going to have to, I always tell you, if you're not willing to pick up where the warranty that you messed up takes off for the next 10 years or the next 3 years or whatever that they've got, don't mess with it. Always check that out first. Now, on this one, we know that we've got a bad compressor. So the first thing that we're going to do, and Mr. Osvaldo here is going to be doing it, I'm going to be explaining to what he's doing as he goes along. First thing you want to do is you want to hook up your piercing valve. You got the tool there, put it on the dryer. This is where you want to put it, down here at the end. Keep in mind, if you hook it up at the top of the dryer, there's little beads in there. It'll plug up, and sometimes it didn't evacuate. So in this one, you want to hook it up near the bottom. Some people will hook it up on the process tube that's on there. Some people don't. I like to put it on the dryer. Hook it up. As soon as you hook it up, you can hear the refrigerant leaking out of there, and it'll go into the recovery bag. Give it 5-10 minutes for all of that to evacuate out of there. I don't normally use the vacuum pump to pull it out. You can if you want to. Usually, as long as you get all of the pressure out of there before you open the system, you're okay. Then what you want to do from there, before you start getting ready, you've got your torch. Now let me hit a couple of things while that's happening as far as the torch is concerned. What I suggest, how many of you guys have put compressors in before? Okay? Now, one of the things that I always try to tell you is you want to get your compressor, and if it's the first time that you're doing it, not your compressor, your torch, you want to practice with it, guys. You want to make sure they're different. For example, his torch here has a small tip. The settings on it are going to be quite different than my torch that's over here. Mine's got a bigger tip on it. I'm not compensating, guys. It's all good. That's the one that was on sale. So when you get a torch, you want to get used to yours. There's three things that are very important. And of course, every one of us guys that is older will always say we have a friend that this happened to, because it never, ever, ever happened to us. Right? You light the torch, you go to unsolder something up there, and you burn something. Guy was telling me right now, a while ago, earlier, we were talking, he said he had to buy a compressor because one of his guys burnt all the wiring in there. Or buy a refrigerator because he burnt all the wiring. Those are important. Now, number one, you can burn the wiring on there, you can burn the plastic tubing, but if you're not careful as you turn, I have seen somebody working on a big GE up on the top, somebody said something, they went like this, all of a sudden the cabinet has a big burn spot on it. Takes just a second, okay? And worse than that, if you ever happen to accidentally put it across your hand, you're burnt, okay? And we're not talking about a light burn. Now, again, some of the things that I will tell you, there's going to be somebody in here for sure that has done it before that says, ooh, I do it like this, or I do it like this. One of the things that I will go through in the class as we walk along is I will tell you, you want to find a method that works for you, okay? When you light the torch and you're going to do this, I always go with the farthest line that's in. Like that one, disconnected. Why? Because I have learned that whenever I do that, if I do the outside one first, as I put my hand in there, I'm going to burn my hand. So keep in mind that what you want to do is do those as you go along. Now, second thing, on this compressor, they did not send us a filter dryer with it. It is imperative, my opinion, and everybody does what they want to do. My opinion, anytime that the system is open, you always replace the filter dryer. No questions about it. It's just $3 filter dryer that you carry on your truck. Saves you a lot of headaches in the long run. Okay? So always, always replace the filter dryer. Now, once all of the refrigerant is out of there, still coming out? Now this one only had about 4.75 ounces of refrigerant in it, so it should be completely empty. Once it's empty, you open it up, close off the bag first, and then open it up, and then take the pliers off of there. Now, when we were doing originally the EPA on the R12, it was imperative, you had to get it, you had to, on these, you're going to get a little bit, it's not going to kill anybody. But EPA says you still got to do it.
Yeah, yours is right, yeah. It wasn't sure about.
No estaba saliendo todo.
¿No salió?
No.
Okay,
No,
you
porque el
got
otro no tiene
put it back.
Voy a poner el otro. We're going to put it the other dimensions because the other valve is no pushing it up.
Now, one of the things that you want to make sure, and one of the things that he's looking at right now, and those gauges, by the way, we bought them brand new, we got them in. I hooked them up at the class, and one of the hoses, the Schrader valve injector was crooked, wouldn't actually activate it. And I think that's probably what happened right now, in that it didn't activate the Schrader valve, so it doesn't come out. But you want to make sure that you get it out of there. If you've ever had one that you forgot to take it out, and you go to heat it, and all of a sudden that pipe comes loose, yes, it will blow up in your face. Worse than that, sometimes when it comes out, it may not flame up, but you get an aroma that goes all the way down to the bottom of your lungs and takes you several days to get rid of. Okay, so you want to be careful. Now usually at this point, once it's evacuated, and we cut the, I always unsolder the lines, but once you cut the filter dryer out, I will always cut the process tube off of there also, just to release the pressure whenever you disconnect the lines on the compressor itself. Okay? But as you look at these, the compressor itself on this one is a little bit different than it used to have in there. So this is the newer refrigerator. On the compressor, and I'll get to it in a little bit whenever we pull it out. The compressors on these are for the LG. One of the things that makes it a little bit different right now is that the compressors for the LG are different than what they used to be. Okay, now if you call LG and your refrigerator is under warranty, they will send you the compressor. In some cases, I'm told that they will send you the compressor and it comes with the control board. Okay? In some cases, it does not. So you have to get a little tool, and we'll get to that in a little bit, show it to you. You get a little tool, once you put the compressor in, before you turn it on, you put the little tool, take it on the compressor, on the control board, and at that point, it will reprogram the control board and create a new communication between your compressor and your control board. Okay? That was here? What are we doing?
It's almost done.
Okay.
It's still evacuate.
Every once in a while, you may want to hook up a vacuum on it and pump it out. Usually just takes a couple minutes by the time you get everything else ready and done to recover the refrigerant out of them. Again, it's not a lot of refrigerant. I remember the original recovery bags when we had at Montgomery Ward. We had the big machine at the shop. They would tell you, okay, you fill this bag up, you put it, bag would blow up about this big, you put it in the back of your truck, and the next day it'd have about this much liquid down in one corner maybe, and that was it. So, I don't know. These bags, supposedly, the newer bags with the silver lining on the inside, you could leave it in there. You can use it for the R600 if you needed to, and it does hold the refrigerant in there and will not seep out through the plastic, will not leak, or anything of that nature.
A little bit more, teacher.
A little more? On some of these, it takes a few minutes to get the refrigerant out of there to get it to equalize. I have seen, in fact, at one time, it was suggested that you tap into the low side and the high side in order to evacuate it. It's not quite, again, unless the EPA is standing over your shoulder, and if they are, be very careful.
Just walk away.
Yeah. But other than that, it was touted as being a very good refrigerant for the ozone and for all of those things. Now they've changed it and are going to the R600. Now, one of the things that we were looking at whenever we were going to do this was whether to use the lock ring system. I said, well, they've already looked at the lock ring system. Otherwise, chances are for the next 5-10 years, you're still going to be running into a whole lot more of these that you have to weld and that you have to control. Now, you can use the lock ring system on these. They look at the lock ring system as something fairly new. Actually, it's been around since 1980 something. We used to use it with General Electric years and years ago.
Is that a specific type of plier he's using to?
The plier that he's using is a piercing valve on there. It's funny because I had to switch this thing out on it this morning because this piece here broke off.
So you can take that off, that piece?
Yeah, it's replaceable.
Got it.
Yeah, with this right here, you adjust it. It's got a tip on here. You squeeze it on there and it punctures your tubing cord. Now there is another pair of pliers and we're not going to use it today. And I'll get to that toward the end. That you can use it. Go on. Take a look at what it looks like.
There's a safety valve in the oxygen bottle where if you open the valve all the way, it repels the back flat all the way back. Instead of just simply cracking it.
That keeps it from going back into the tank.
Correct, yeah. Safety.
Now, the other thing that you want to be careful, the reason I say that you want to get used to, the other reason I say that you want to get used to your torch is because when you light the torch, if you're not careful, and of course this always happens to one of our friends, never ever happened to us. You go to a house where they've got the white couches in the next room and everything in the house is white, and you pop your torch, and instead of lighting with a gentle pop like that, all of a sudden you've got soot everywhere. Be very careful, you're going to be cleaning the house, and it's not easy. On these, if you're too high, it's going to pop loud, and I'd rather have the customer hear a pop and get scared than to have the little soot thing all over the place. Now, the other is on these.
Glasses, man, glasses.
I got glasses right here, that's what I brought. They look like regular glasses, but they're for welding glasses. So.
Now, when you're going to take this off of there, once this, like I said again, you get used to dealing with the torch.
You know, I've been changing compressors. I was 15 years old, so it's been 25 years.
You've been doing it really well. Usually whenever we teach a class, what we're going to teach you is how to use the torch, how to light it correctly, how to prep the flame. If you have a flame that is too small, it's going to take you a long time to get it off of there, and you're going to have to go backwards and forward around. If you have a flame that's too big, especially when you're dealing on the steel line, you're going to burn the line, and it's going to break off in your hand before you can take it off of there. So you want to practice with the right size flame so that it comes apart cleanly. You notice also that he put a burn floor on the floor underneath. I've got one that Electrolux gave me. Look like this. It's kind of burnt. Yeah, anytime you had an evaporator on a freezer, Electrolux would always send one of these, but it comes in handy to protect the floor and protect everything underneath you whenever you're welding on it. I've got a new one at home. I just forgot to put it in the gym. You never looked at
They really look like that.
Yeah, when you do the evaporator, yeah. Now there's other stuff that you could use whenever you're doing evaporators. They've got it's like a gummy,
The mastic.
the mastic gum that you put on there. It's not cheap, and so it's different things. The biggest thing is just be careful, learn how to light it and work it together, and so as you take it apart. Now, in this case, he's going to take all the connections off at one time. I usually will do everything together so that we just light the torch minimum number of times, take less chances of getting the black stuff all over the house. Now, I don't care how good you are, how long you've been doing it, every once in a while there's going to be a bunch of dust under there, and the dust is flammable. So the dust will catch and will start to burn off. We were told the sprinkler system wouldn't go on.
You guys will get a free shower today.
You gotta watch out for that plastic drain.
I had one 2 days ago.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times what will happen sometimes is if your flame is not correct and you don't heat it correctly, when you pull it out, you'll get droplets of silver solder that will fall down. And of course, it never happened to us. I always have a friend that's burnt their linoleum floor that way. But yeah, it can also happen on the drain pan underneath the compressors.
So as you see, guys, I already take all the connections out. This is the high pressure side, the lower side, and I also remove, the dryer filter out. We're gonna let it cool off for a couple of minutes,
Now, on some
so
of
that way I
these,
can get it out.
on some of these, what they will have, depending on the brand and stuff,
Say it again?
I don't have time to wait until it cools.
Well, come get come on. You can come on the video.
You have 2 pliers,
on some of these,
you close the wires.
I have the special gloves.
now, on some of these, they have the bolts holding the compressor in. I will usually take the bolts off before I start to heat it. Others like to leave the bolts on so that when you pull the tube out, it doesn't move the compressor on you. But it's, like I said, there are different ways of doing it. You want to pick the way that works best for you. And so, like I said, when I do them, I always disconnect everything on the compressor so that at this point, as he said, you know, even though you've got a hot compressor still, you can grab a hold of it with a pair of pliers on each side, pick it up and pull it out of the way.
Remember, you put it somewhere where the customer could kick it and run.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that you will sometimes have is a paper towel with a wet paper towel sitting beside you. And then you can cool it down that way too. Now, on some of these, and I'm not necessarily just talking about the LG, I know one of the other brands, the compressor fits in there just right. And when you go put the new one in there, you actually have to shove it in there to get it to fit into the system, because the spacing between the bottom bracket that goes across and the top of there is just barely enough to get you to put it in there.
Forgot to remove the ground.
And this one you didn't. One of the things you want to do is disconnect all of the wiring on it. Most of the compressors, this one I noticed, I do not believe comes with the new electricals on it, but so you wind up using the ones from the old one. I'm not sure if the new one does or not.
I'm not sure.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
There's a one that.
Comes with the cover for the,
Just comes with the cover for it.
just
It does with the cover, yeah.
you have to change the position.
So some of you guys have already done them.
Yeah.
In determining if the compressor is bad, you have to tap a valve and check the pressures on it,
No.
what it's doing? Or?
Now, most of the time on the compressor, with the LG, usually if the compressor is noisy, you can tell. Now, most of the time, whenever you've got a compressor such as this, and you want to determine if it's bad, you check for lock rotor amps. If the compressor's not coming on, the other is you can open it up and ohm it out, and you've got your 3 plugs in there, your common, your run, and your start, and you can check those to go back and forth to make sure that it's, you got continuity there and the right continuity. And then the biggest thing is going to be the locked rotor amps. Now, one of the ways that you can tell if your compressor is not pumping correctly is you put your hand on the filter dryer. It should be warm. Okay? Now, keep in mind that is one method. But if your refrigerator is not defrosting and you didn't catch that, and you go and put your hand on the filter dryer, it's not going to be warm, and you're going to think, ooh, sealed system. Before you ever tap into the sealed system is the last thing you want to look at. Okay, because once you've opened it, it's sort of like, to me, I always say it's sort of like doing open heart surgery when you don't have to. Okay, there's many, many ways to test it. First, on the inside to make sure your defrost system is working, your refrigerant is circulating before you ever tap into it. The only time you want to tap into the system is going to be if you know for sure that the problem is in the compressor or in the sealed system. And at that point, you either have to find out whether you've got a leak in it, or whether you've got a bad compressor, or whether you've got a restriction in it. And any one of those will keep it from cooling.
What should be the amp draw if it is running and it's not going?
That's going to be changing from company to company. You have to look on the inside, or on the side of the compressor here, it'll give you a locked rotor amp, an LRA, and it'll tell you what the amperage is. Usually your compressor is going to peak out at about 9, and it's going to be running at about 3.5 to 4.5 amps normally. Now you put your amp meter on there and it pegs out at 15, replace the compressor. It's not.
Yeah, I heard it's normal for linear compressors to run like at higher amps, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not. So.
I've heard the same thing. Depends on, like I said, you can look on the side of the compressor and it'll tell you what the amperage on the compressor is, as far as the locked rotor amps. When you press the compressor, you're going to put a service valve on there on the port, on the service port. Some guys like to do it out here, don't disconnect it, and do it out here, and then they put it in place. Others, like myself, I like to put everything in place and then just turn the torch on once and solder everything together. Yes, sir.
Question, do you do that software update after the compressor or before?
You do the software update, once you've got the compressor in and connected, then you do the software update before you turn the refrigerator on.
You don't do the software software update on the old compressor and then rotate to the refrigerator?
Say again?
You don't do the software update and then make that rotation of the start device?
No, my understanding, and I'm not real familiar with that. My understanding is that the software update, the little box that you put on there will actually look at it and determine which compressor is in there. This is what the little box looks like. It will determine which compressor is in there, and then what it does is it changes the communication between the compressor and the control board. And so it changes the software in there. On these, you've got two different connectors that come on this, and you can get this at Shameless Plug, a reliable appliance. They tell me they run anywhere from $50 to $85. It has two lines on here, and it depends on which control board it has. This one, I've already seen, has the white plug on there. But once you plug it in, then you hit these over here one at a time, and it will then determine what software you've got in there, and then it'll change the software to match the compressor that you just put in.
So you don't have to dial that? You don't have to like pin code it
I
in?
was told no, the code is already on there, and you don't have to change the code.
But let me ask you a question. If you change the compressor and you plug in and the compressor starts running, you don't need to do the software update.
You want to do the software update because we have had a couple of them that have come in where somebody put a compressor in there, the machine never worked, and all we did was hook up the little machine, do the software update, plug it in, and it worked.
I've heard them work for a week and then quit.
Did it?
Yeah.
If it asks for the update, you want to update.
Yeah, don't do this unless you have it.
No, initially, my understanding is that the LG compressor, this compressor did come with this in some of them, but I'm told now that it does not. The compressor we got. Yes.
You can't buy them.
For a while, that was an LG.
I am told, again, that Reliable carries them. I've never ordered one.
I know for a fact that on the first compressor, the universal compressors are coming out, they were coming inside the compressor. After a while, they didn't have it anymore.
Yeah, it's been that way 2 years for us.
Yeah. And then they, you was able to find it on the parts department as well. But a lot of people who got it, on the first universal compressors, of course, we kept them in.
Well, so there's a different one now.
Updated jigs.
Yeah, there's 2 jigs now, and there's more than 2, I believe, but there's like for a long, if you like ask your parts supplier, they tell you you're required to give some LG code as an authorized servicer. Talk to management, like whatever parts supplier you're using. So from my understanding, that went away. So they used to, when you order, you used to have to type in a code from LG or give them a code to say you're an LG servicer, but that's supposed to be done. Any service company should be able to buy it once, fit the criteria.
I'm not an authorized warranty servicer for LG. Started 2 years and years ago, but I was real busy with GE at the time. But they've changed a little bit, so if you're an LG guy and you know a little bit more as far as this goes, let me
I know the
know.
problems I had getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what I had to do. I had to chase down an LG servicer to get me one.
I don't know now, but there was a time that you can actually order online.
For those
on a reliable, so I don't know if it's still the same.
It's like we've had one of them for almost a year now, the other one for almost 2 years. Our first one, I went 2 to 3 months chasing people down to try to get
Try to get
one.
one?
Because every time we would try to order online, they would ask for an LG authorized code to say we were a warranty provider.
Yeah.
And then finally we got around that.
Now, I was told, I did not check that, I was told Reliable had them, but I've never ordered one. It's sort of like the one that GE used to have years ago when you replaced the fan motor inside. You buy the fan motor, they give you this little box, you would put it up there and they would give you a packet and they'd say, put this in there, we'll save you $5 back, and you're like, this little box is worth more to me than $5, but you would normally send them that. So what they do is they change the software in there. On this one, I think all it does is repair or change the communication so that the control board can now communicate with the new compressor.
So it's supposed to regulate your inverter to work with this new compressor.
Okay.
Which is why, like, they'll run out of the box fine, but a weekend, that compressor will quit running if you don't,
Okay.
if you don't map the software.
It doesn't communicate with the compressor.
Now, we're looking at doing it properly, okay, with, you know, the way it's supposed to be done. I have heard, and again, you know, friends, I've never done it, where you can put a regular compressor in here and then turn around and put a relay on the control board.
Yeah, I don't,
and,
You can't do
you
that.
know,
you can't, well,
We'll stay on the whole time.
no,
I don't know, I've got a guy, well, I know a guy, I know a guy that does, sells used appliances.
Flippers, yeah.
That does say he does it, and he did one for a neighbor of mine, and that was,
The one
you
with
know, a
the,
year ago, and it's still working, so.
the one with the double evaporator is really hard. They normally put it on the one with the only one capillary. And what they do, they use a relay from, you know, AutoZone.
Yeah.
And the only thing they do, and they changing the power so it can come better and put the 110. So when the fan turn off, it turn off the compressor itself. So it's just, you know,
Okay, so they've already been through the fan.
you know, like we say it in Mexico, you know, it's a Mexican job. A lot of people say it was a Mickey Mouse, you know, so,
Yeah. We
If
don't,
it's cooling, it's okay. That's okay.
you know, so it's a different ways to what people do, you know, trying to go around it, but of course it's not recommended.
when we're going to teach it in the class and teach you to do it right, get the compressor that goes to this box, not just any compressor, and do it right the way that the manufacturer says. Again, my thought is always never do anything to harm the customer. Now, occasionally you've got one that the customer says, you know, either I throw it away or let's see what we could do. You know, then I'll bet you I'll do whatever you can.
You said sometimes it comes with a new board, whole new board?
I've heard that sometimes it comes with a whole new board.
I've got one, they'll send a board sometimes, it just depends
Yeah.
on which compressor they use.
You know, we do a lot of you know, jobs. We also own same-day appliance repair. You know, we work a lot with, you know, the technicians call the office call LG or Samsung, and they check, they see if it was still in the warranty, and then they send the compressor directly to the office. I've seen it before where they send, you know, the compressor with the new board, and you know, you have to replace it. You know, they send you the exactly replacement for the machine, and that way we are able to save some money to the customer. You know, you see companies where they don't care about the customer, and they still tell the customer, they charge the customer, and they still do the warranty on LG or Samsung, and they get a free compressor. But you know, we always try. We know how expensive it can get replace compressors. So whatever we can save the customer, if we get in the compressor for free, you know, they send you the evaporators, they send you the condensers. We see a lot of leaks on the condensers as well. You know, and a lot of, you know, all the humidity, you know, from the drain pan and go to the system. So we always recommend to replace, you know, the condenser and the compressor at the same time, so we don't have no, you know, contamination on the system. If the system is too contaminated, so what we will do is ask also for the evaporator, and we flush all the system and get it all replaced. So, you know, it's good when they still on the warranty, because you can save the customer some money, and you got the original part on it. So.
Now on these, whenever this compressor did not come with anything in the box, so we're putting a access valve on there to charge it. We're putting the filter jar that we've got on there has an access valve on there. You can, when you're finished, pinch those off, solder them, and make it a completely sealed system. You know, 90% of the time, most of the guys just leave those on there. Usually you go by whatever the manufacturer prefers. When I was the authorized warranty servicer with Frigidaire, years ago, Frigidaire always preferred that you take them off. Just using a standard, yes, it's a standard UV dryer. Now the dryers on these, you can get them at Reliable, but it's not, I mean, we did not go with the LG part number for that, we just got.
Is that a dye dryer?
That program, or is that a jig?
It's not a dye dryer.
It's called a jig.
That's what I want, but I can't find it at Reliable on the jig.
There's a part number.
It's called a, It's a software rewriter.
Software rewriter.
This one is a model Frank Larry David 2. One more time. It's a model Frank Larry David 2. The software rewriter. Now, once you've got to this point, then he's ready. He's got it all ready to
Yeah,
solder back in.
All the lights are back together.
You're going to put your flux on there, then you're going to light it up, and you're going to go ahead and solder it in.
I have 1, 2, and 3 that they copper to copper, and then I have 2 that is copper to steel, and we will use flux on those. You know, personally, I like to use bronze as well. They send some really nice sticks that they already come with the flux around. It's orange flux, and it's a really thin stick, welding stick, and it's a lot easier to weld on steel and copper together. One thing that I normally do, I try to stay a little bit like the filter before I remove it. The filter was all the way here. What I do a little bit out, so we have part of the other soldering on the pipe. So that way it's a lot easier for the silver to stick on there with the flux. So I don't push it all the way in like it was before. I push it halfway so we can play a little bit and make it a lot easier to do the welding. So.
What's your percentage of silver sticks used?
Well, 15 is what is recommended. You know, I use 6. I have used 20 before, but I don't know.
I always use 45 for the steel.
Yeah, it's overkill.
Yeah, I've got some of the 16.
Use 15 with the flux on that.
Yeah, if you use the bronze with the flux on it, you know, it's even cheaper than the 45, and it's a lot easier to weld. And it's 2 different types on the bronze. One is really thin, and another one is bigger. So if you use the thin one, you know, it welds super easy. I thought I have one of the sticks, but I don't. I personally like to do it. You know, I started, you know, doing appliances when I was 13 years old with my dad. So, you know, in Mexico, you use a lot the bronze. And, you know, by 15, I was already changing compressor and all that. So I learned to do it with bronze more than you know, silver. But here they use a lot of the silver and the flux. So either or, you just have to make sure, you know, when you welding, you stay, you know, the heat, you put it more on the copper side than the steel side. So make it a little bit easier. Well, here you go.
Yeah.
Teacher have one of those. You know, the bronze is the little thin one. The one I will weld with both, so you guys see the difference. It's a lot easier to weld with this one. And I like the smell as well.
Again, it's one of those things that you practice, you do what works well for you. I've seen where people will use the 56% silver. I've still got a couple of rolls of that because I stopped using the ones. I normally go use the 15 or even the 5%, and you know, get plenty of flux on there, and it usually slides easy.
When they buy it, they'll use you.
Yeah, when you're paying for it, you stay off each other like, which guy want to use?
I think it's about $20 a stick.
Yeah, the difference between, I think the 15 is only like $4 or $5, and the other one's like $2.
Okay, I'm gonna go with the one on the back. You know, it's always.
And always do the ones that are furthest back first, not the front one, because when you go to reach for the back one, you're gonna burn yourself.
Oh, you want to see inside?
You know,
we asked if we can project.
I know a lot of people like to use the glasses. You know, I know it's safety. You know, we don't have a lot of light. You know, but
You never use it. Don't say that.
I don't use it. Personally, I don't use it. You know, we didn't have the money back in the day to buy. Now I can buy them, but I'm not used to it. You know.
We had common sense back then to say.
It's
I was
just,
only 15 when I
Now,
started.
there are two different schools. I mean, you're
How
all
old are you
learning,
now?
you do have a very
38.
bright light.
how old?
38.
38.
Been doing it for 25 years.
I'll tell you, I'm 60, and I don't think that I've used glasses whenever I'm welding, maybe twice. But then again, maybe that's why I can't see.
Well, it's not that, it's just you don't
It
want something
can-
to get in your eye.
Yeah, it can damage your eyes, guys. When you're jumping around, if you notice my eye close on one side, I got hit by a bottle rocket,
Yeah.
burned it on the outside. So a flame can damage your eyesight very easily. It is better if you wear the safety glasses at least, or the dark glasses, you know, to do that. Again,
Can you see that right there?
there are risks, and then there are risks that you're willing to take and others are not willing to take, and so you go with what you.
Like I tell my guys, still one more truck, still an eye, you better use it.
Yes, you better use it. And again, sometimes for newer guys, it depends on what your company tells you. You know, you follow what the boss says, or else you're on the road or something.
The history of sear, you got injured, they want to know if you were wearing protective material.
As long as they yes, yes.
But if that injury report shows your hands cut, you weren't wearing gloves, it's obvious. You know, if you got something in your eyeball, you obviously weren't wearing safety gloves.
Well, we'll make you wear them that same day.
No, when we did the last class, we did, as the students were doing it, we did require that they wear the safety glasses to get used to it. Now, on this one, sometimes when you go upward, you got to be careful that there's not anything under there, such as dust that's going to catch fire on it.
I'm gonna use the regular silver on this one on the bottom, and I'm gonna use the bronze on the one on top. So I'm gonna do one and one so you guys see the difference, and after I finish welding, everybody can come and just kind of look the weldings.
So you put your flux on after it's already
Yeah.
What I do, you know, I warm it up a little bit, you know, and then I put the flux and then
it
I,
runs in.
yeah.
Okay.
You know,
Now, again,
if it's newer flux, you just bought it, it's not too old, it's normally liquid like this. So just put a little bit all around it.
and if it gets a little bit older, add a little more.
You take your stick and stir it.
So the stick breaks off, and then you got to, yeah. Now, most of the time, and again, everybody does it different, most of the time, since I use the regular stick, I will go through there before I ever start and put flux on everything.
Yeah, that's what
You know, and so by the time I'm ready to it, the flux has started to dry. You want to be careful you don't overflux it, because if you put too much flux on there and your heat's not right, it'll actually create a little crystal ball on there, and it'll look pretty, it'll look right, but you got a little bubble on there that all of a sudden breaks loose and you got a leak. So you don't want to put too much of the flux on there, but you want to make sure that you get it to where it cleans it. Now, I have guys that will tell you that
His hands can be in
instead of cleaning it, they sand it down real
I'm
good
like trying.
and clean everything off of it, and that works just
I'm like
perfect.
all over this guy. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I can move over if you.
No, you're fine.
It doesn't dry, it'll pop. At least.
And you use the other one. Again, some of those, it depends on what you get used to and what you're willing to pay for. Because some of them are more expensive than others.
You know, since these connections were already welded with bronze, bronze normally runs a lot easier on bronze already, so to make it easier. But again, you know, it's like teacher was saying, it's preference. You know, everybody, you know, start learn different, and you know, we will try to teach you on our class, you know, different ways, and before even touching and replacing a compressor, we're gonna be, welding a lot of pipes together and doing it in a station where, it's gonna be safe and everything. So by the time that you guys come here, you already have the experience of welding and doing all, and it's gonna be a lot of easier.
You notice one of the things that he did is he did take the valve cores out of both of the valves there. You want to make sure you take them out of there whenever you're heating it, so that you don't burn the rubber seals on there. Now, when we put it back on there, I don't have one of the funny little tools for torquing them down. We just put them on there and tighten them down all the way. But I ordered one of those little funny looking tools. So.
You have your screwdriver right there.
Yeah, there you go. Give me these screwdrivers away. Somebody has, you got one about it.
Okay, so
Whatever they are.
if you guys want to come and check the weldings out,
I'm gonna take a quick picture.
Yeah, just don't touch them. Now,
so you can see on this one it was copper to copper. Normally, what I do, I put a little bit more heat on the compressor side
Let me get out of here.
than the part in the back, because it's normally thicker. So you want to put more on the back than the front, and then you weld all around. You see the difference on the bronze? Of course, the color.
yeah.
But you see, it took me a little bit less to weld that one than it took me to weld the other one. And again, the bronze looks more pretty than the other one.
Yeah.
So I welded one in the back. I welded discharge right here, filter. I removed the valves inside.
What size is that tip?
It's number 2.
Just small.
I love that one. I got used to welding on that one, so it's different ones. A lot of people, they like to weld with those propane tanks, and the flame is really high and the heat is not properly.
We had a guy that likes using the MAP gas.
So you see, this one it was, still with copper. You can see.
Yeah.
And this one I was showing you. This one is copper to steel, and then the bronze that I did with bronze, you can see it's a lot easier to weld. It's not pretty, but I know it went around. It run really good.
It sucked it in.
Now,
It sucked it in.
Yeah, it did.
Typically, when you're going to do a weld on those, you want to heat on one side, and you want to touch the rod on the back side or the other side, so that it actually, the silver will actually pull toward the heat.
What I normally do, I burn the stick a little bit here. I twist it around so it's kind of in an L. So when I'm welding, I put the stick through the back, and it make it a lot easier to go around it. If you're trying to put it like this, it's kind of hard, but if it's an L, it's a lot easier. So it helps you to weld through the back.
Make sure you got a good weld on.
So you come from the back and then you heat it from the front, and so it pulls around?
Well, since you have already your pipe really warm and hot and ready to suck in the stick, and you already put it on top, and then you go around, you just go around it really easy, and then you go through the bottom a little bit, and you just run all the way back.
And wherever you've got the flame, you normally want to touch the rod on the back side so that it pulls toward the flame and seals all the way around. Now, usually at this point, what we're going to do is you can do it one of 2 ways. Now, we're going to use the vacuum pump to pull a vacuum on there, make sure we don't have any leaks. Back in 1986, 87, General Electric developed the sweep method, which is what most of us use, because you don't have to use anything. What you do on the sweep method, you hook up your gauges to the low side, open up the high side, turn the compressor on. And the compressor will pull it down to about a 26-inch vacuum. And once you've got it at a 26-inch vacuum, purge it a little bit, put the valve on the core on there, put the cap, then you put the refrigerant in, and you're done. With the, in this case, because of the fact that it's going to take us a few minutes to show you how to put the reprogram on there, what we're going to do is we're going to hook up, we're going to put the vacuum pump on there, and with the vacuum pump, you do pull down to 30-inch on the vacuum side. Now, I don't have the little micron thing that he was talking about. I don't think it's quite that delicate in most of these cases. Again, used to When they first came out with the R134 compressor back in 1996, 95, they would tell you that you did not open the compressor, the new compressor, until you were ready to put it in. Because supposedly, if you pulled the plugs on that new compressor, if you didn't have it sealed within 20 minutes, you might as well throw that compressor away. And so we have found over the years it's not quite that delicate. The oil in the compressor supposedly would immediately start to absorb water and moisture out of the air and would ruin the compressor within 20 minutes if you didn't have it done that way. Again, we have found that it's not quite as delicate. Most of the time on some of these, if you've got a leak on the low side, you do replace the compressor because you've got pulling stuff in. Now, one thing I did not mention earlier, whenever you cut the tube on there, if you get a bunch of oil out of there, replace the compressor. Even if you've got a restriction and you know it's only a restriction, if you've got oil in there, go ahead and replace the compressor and flush the system correctly to get it done.
Are you gonna fire this up and running once you get started? So in your school, you go over how to remove restrictions and all that stuff?
Yes. Yeah, one of the ideas on there, whenever you've got a restriction, whether it's in the high side or the low side, then you have to figure out where it's at, or what gives you the same symptoms of the restriction. For example, like I said, a defrost system will give you the same restriction or the same symptom to a certain extent of a restriction.
One good thing about the school is that we flush anywhere from 300 to 500 appliances a week. So we have a big line we have 32 connections on fridges. So we connect we get an 18-wheeler, we connect everything, and then my guys start checking everything. So when we have the school running, all the fridges are already going to be pre-diagnosed. We already know that it has a structure and a leak, compressor, something is going to be run on the seal system. So we're trying to flush whatever is easy, relays, computers, put them through the store and sell them fast. So whatever has a problem, is the one we're going to be saving. So that way, here professor can...
We'll bring them in, and of course we've already in the class, we've already covered how to check it, how to take care of it. If we know what's wrong with it, we'll bring it in. We're not telling you what's wrong with it, you tell me what's wrong with it.
We will let you diagnose it, find the problem, and then, fix it. On this crash course that we have a month and a half ago, some of the techs or the guys were taking the class, they really wanted to learn more on welding and finding leaks, and we let them play with welding and doing a lot of repairs. They change compressors, they find leaks. We have one guy that he was welding the filter. It was kind of a little bit this way. It was a top and bottom refrigerator. He's an older guy. When he was doing the repair, he burned the cables in the back. And we didn't tell him anything. We were watching him. We let him, messed up so he can learn off his mistake. After he finished, we told him, since he's a refurbished refrigerator, we open a hole right here. We want it all the way in, remove the insulation. We reconnect everything. We make it work. We cover it up. So it's we want him to see the example what you don't want to do when you're in the customer house. You have the flame too high, you go all the way there, and then you're in the customer house and you didn't know what happened, and then now the freeze don't work, all the cables are melted together, and he really messed up on that one, but it was a teaching experience that we made for the other guys, and at the end of the day, we were able to fix it, everything worked, and we resell the appliance. But, we want to teach you guys through our school, not only, the right way to do it, but the experiences that we had on the field. Teacher here been doing it over 40 years. I've been doing it over 25 years. So we want to share, all the experience. My dad has been doing it for over 50 years. So all the experience that he had, passed through me, and, we want to pass it through you guys. And things that normally nobody share, it's hard for, you go to the police department and you talk to somebody, say, hey, I had this problem. Have you seen before? Oh, no, I haven't seen it. Nobody want to tell you anything. They want the customer to call them so they can do the job. We want to teach you those experiences that you see on the field, and you go prepared to do the right.
On most of these, if they're under warranty, you follow the manufacturer's protocol to do it. Burn the wires, replace the refrigerator. you know, on stuff where you're working or where a customer is a garage refrigerator or something, you can find ways to fix it. And so you do. But what we want to teach you whenever we're in the class is, number one, do it right. Number two, if you make a mistake, make it right. Don't try to cover it up. Don't hide it. One of the worst things that you can do, and I know because I've had you go behind somebody and say, you know, you understand your machine's been worked on, it's got grease.
No, yeah.
Evacuation of.
You know,
You still have to share it out.
Moisture out.
I already put the valve, so I'm gonna open both.
All right, if you're going to use the vacuum pump, you do want to hook up both sides to pull both of them out. If you're going to use the sweep method, then you close off the low side, open the high side, and it will push everything out. Okay, and it puts it down to 26.
I've always followed this with the sweep that you put, you know, some charge in it and then let it below the charge of the sweep charge. The charge cleans
Now
it out
normally what I do is I'll hook up my low side, turn my compressor on, I've got my gauges set up. Usually if I use the charging cylinder and it calls for 7 ounces, I'll put 9 ounces in the cylinder and then run 2 ounces through there to purge it.
Right.
And it sweeps it out. Normally, if you're going to do the sweep, you put your finger on top of the dryer and you hold it, make sure you get good pressure, release it, and you'll feel the air coming out. And then you continue it until you have no air coming out at all. And you know, you put the meter on there, my phone, you probably get a little bit, but it's not enough once you've got it swept out of there. If you're using the sweep method, you do want to purge it just a little bit to make sure that you get everything out of there. If you're using the vacuum pump, normally, years ago, the rule of thumb was you left it on to 15 to 30 minutes. Now, most of the time, we say 5 to 10 minutes is more than adequate to get most of everything that's out there.
You charge it to the high or low side?
It depends in this case, since we're using the charging cylinder, and we'll probably charge it before we ever turn the machine on. We'll drop all of it in there. Most of the time I go through the low side. Now, you can use a charging cylinder, it's easier. I've been using pressure for years. I'm told you're not going to be able to do that with the R600, but most of the time on these, you go through the low side, you get it to 3 to 5 pounds on the low side, close it up, and you're ready to go.
The manufacturers, because of their data, their tech sheets, most of them tell you what side to
Now, again, part of what you're going to run into is it also depends on what you're working on. Okay, when I say 3 to 5 pounds on the low side, if you're doing with the Sub-Zero refrigerator, it's 16 pounds on the low side. If you're dealing with the GE under the counter, it's a 0. So you want to find out what you're working on and what it.
That they tell you don't charge liquid when the compressor is running in, because if you have liquid going to the compressor, you know it can break the valve. But on this part,
that moisture in the compressor. So,
but this way, since you have the completely vacuum on the system,
because I guess because I don't see the way it looks inside of the compressor in my mind. Am I just to imagine that just because I'm putting it into liquid, it's bypassing the components that compress the gas?
You can hurt the compressor because it's supposed to. When he's with the one with the piston, he's pushing the valve, so it's normally pressure that he's pushing. But if you're doing the liquid, you can hurt the valves with the liquid going through the piston.
So is there any benefit to ever put it in through the low side? Shouldn't you just always put it in through the high side?
Well, you put it in through the low side whenever you're adjusting, you're going by pressure.
Okay.
If you're going the charging cylinder, or if you're doing the weights, the scale, then it really doesn't matter because you can charge it up whenever it's off.
Gotcha. Is the charging cylinder help force it into the machine? 40 pounds. Or is it the vacuum?
It's already out. We did it to both sides, so we're already all the way. So now this set, what we will do is just completely close both sides out.
It takes a while to get
We're gonna let We're gonna let this sit it out for a couple of minutes to make sure we don't lose any pressure, so that way we know we don't have no leaks.
Is the charging cylinder, the idea of the charging cylinder to just avoid having to weigh it in and?
Yeah.
It's way better, yeah, well, easier.
It's
I use that exact cylinder.
Yeah, it's easier because you can measure it, open it, dump it, you're done.
It's only $211 to buy one, you know, and it save you a ton.
When you do the scale, you have to put the scale on there and then adjust it, and then you hit it a little bit at a time, and you have to look at the scale, hit it, look at the scale, hit it. And so it takes a little bit longer. Secondly, it's easier to carry that little tube in than it is to carry the big giant box with the scale on it. Again, I talked to a guy this morning that told me his guys all use a scale. It really depends on what's easier. It depends on what's easier for you.
It works great.
Yeah, don't mind if I can check the video and
We just did it right now. So if you see, what you do is just you put the cylinder, you put a hose, connect it right here, you open it, and you are looking at it, and then you just press it. And then you see the leak to the top, you see the fiber, it's exactly what we do. And I know a lot of people don't do it, but this way, is what we do. And I used to do it with the big giant box of your car. I went with the new results now. I was fixing a built-in refrigerator. You know, I was in a function of the system, I cleaned the system, I did everything, and I charged it by pressure. So a couple of days later, it was in the phone, and we wanted to keep leaking water. So it was overcharged, and the line was freezing. So I started taking a little bit of fuel, you know, in the frost, and it was fine. A couple of days later, she called me again, you know, it's happening again, it's happening. So when we got the frost, I did a vacuum, I cleaned the whole system again, it was completely empty, and I used exactly what the manufacturer told me to put in there. I put the ounces, she never called me back. So it's always the best, easy way to do. So imagine, you know, that jug of Freon that we have is 30 pounds. This lasts you forever. Especially right now that the price of the Freon double the price. Triple. $211.
All right, here's where, real quick.
It go all the way to 18 ounces. So you can have the 18 ounces right here just on your truck, and you know you just calculate how much you put it. But it's a lot easier if you go the right number.
We're run out of time. Let's go ahead and let me get around there. We'll hook this up. Show you how to connect this up.
You ready, teacher? You want to finish up?
You want to go ahead and
Do you do that when it's unplugged, or do you have to plug it in for that?
Unplugged.
Okay.
You can,
Aquí
well,
está.
they say that you can mess it up, but I don't
Back over for you.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There's so many ways to do it, and people do it this way, and it works for them. But you have to do it the other way. But the manufacturer tells you to do it this way. So
you know, it's just really simple. It's like you know, when you're in school, you know, they teach you, you know, mathematics. You know, they teach you one way. But a lot of people do it different. You know, it's a lot of ways to solve one problem. So yeah, the manufacturer is always going to tell you the way they do it, and then you're going to do one way. But then along the way, you find your way.
No.
And this way works for you. It don't mean that it's wrong. It don't mean that it's bad. It's just you find the way that it works a lot easier. Like I find out that the number 2 flame works for me. You know, it's not really long, you know, it's small, you know, it's just perfect. You don't burn anything in the back. You know, you have that big flame where you go on the back and you burn everything. So it's things that you're gonna be finding out, you know, along the way when you are working. But again, you know, we will teach you one way, we'll teach you the right way, and whatever way you want to do it, you know, you're gonna find your own way as well.
On this, you're gonna do it while it's disconnected. You've got the white connector right here. You're gonna connect up.
Was that a blank? There was nothing in there already?
Huh?
There was nothing in that plug already?
There's nothing in that plug. Now, in some of them, you're going to have the pink one. You're going to use the pink one. Basically, at that point, push that button right there.
So if you have the pink one, you plug it into the pink one?
Yes.
You can reuse that?
Yes.
It's reusable.
Battery in there.
So that's got a little pin on it right there.
They do have
For
updates.
dialing. Is that supposed to be set to a certain model?
No, I'm told it's the same. Again,
But you have it set for different positions. If you move that to the
There's a power button
button.
somewhere there.
there's a power button.
Wow.
That's like 60
All right, we got the refrigerator, flash downloader. You can wait a couple of minutes.
It'll take,
Yeah, you wind up pushing it 2 or 3 times, I think.
I don't know if you guys seen, back in the day,
Have you
he
guys
had
used this
one.
before?
You run it on the first.
I have one, I've not done one of the LG yet.
Do you guys remember the heat refrigerator that you was replacing the fan?
Right, at that
and it
point,
don't work,
it's
and you had to
checking-
put the connection on top? It's kind of the similar, it's just an update,
Yeah.
you know, it's what they was.
But there is checking.
Well, you got no pressure right now.
Yeah, it don't matter,
It's
it don't
checking.
matter.
It don't matter.
This thing, what it's
For the
doing,
computer.
yeah, what this thing is doing is checking your communication between the board and the new computer and make sure that it's correct.
If you
Where's
put
the new computer at?
The new computer is the one that we put in there. Now, if you look at the computer itself, or, no,
the new compressor.
get me right, man. Correct me, the new compressor. If you look at the compressor on an LG refrigerator, you order a new compressor, you see this red tag that's on there?
Yeah.
If it's got the red tag, you need to do the software upgrade.
What if it doesn't have a red tag?
If it wasn't red tag, then you don't have
You
to.
don't need to do it. Now, it's really simple, you know, when you, if we wouldn't do the upgrade, the compressor don't start. You connect the refrigerator work, but compressor doesn't start.
So,
You know, as soon as you
Right
do
there,
that, you do
right
the
now it's
program,
telling me the model is
and then now the
reading,
compressor will
the
start.
model that is guide is reading the unit itself and is ready for it to plug in.
In some cases, I've experienced that I haven't experienced yet, but the jig won't update the control
And
board.
if it won't,
Right
you gotta
there.
change
And
the
that's
board.
when you have to change the
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
See,
On
right
the
there-
board model, I think it's 2014.
Yeah.
And,
But it
You know,
tells you,
right there
it tells you
is-
it's not able to update or something
it
like
won't
that.
do it, and if you keep trying, it just keeps trying, and they won't.
You know, on
Now, right there, it did the flash erase on the other one, and it downloaded it, and now it's complete. So at this point,
If you get the board,
you
if
disconnect
you get
it,
the compressor.
turn it off, and you're ready to go.
I don't.
And do the rest of
it. ¿Ya conectó?
People.
Cámbiale el film, por favor.
Okay. And then they'll say what parts you need. So you need a board, you need a dry filter, and a compressor.
You know, through our company, like I was telling you guys, we have a lot of refrigerators come in. You know, we
Some of them you have to update, some of them you don't.
It's all right.
And it'll say on the box.
I was telling you guys that I seen a lot, you know, we get a lot of new use scratching that in consumer return appliances. Sometimes we get a brand new, LG refrigerator, and then you open it, and you see that has a compressor. You put you put the gauges, and then you see that you have Freon on it. So when you connect it, compressor doesn't start, and then you do the upgrade, and then the refrigerator work, everything is running. So that technician who went and do the job, he didn't know that they need the program, so the customer got tired, just buy a brand new refrigerator, and everything was done the right way, but the upgrade.
Right. One of the things that you run into.
They don't send the board.
It was already
That's probably
changed.
tell them. Most of the time,
Now,
to operate the board, they're not.
On this one, one of the things that you do when you pull the vacuum and you close off your gauges, disconnect the pump, you wait a couple of minutes, make sure that you did not lose any pressure in there. If you get it and you lost pressure, that means you've got a leak in it somewhere, you didn't do a good job soldering. All right, so at this point, we've got good pressure in there, we've not lost anything. I've got it hooked up, open that valve on the bottom.
You purchase the system, right, before you...
Right, purchase the line,
The line.
Just the
that
yellow
line right there. And we have a little bit of extra in the cylinder to accommodate that. Now, at this point, I'm going to open up the high side and drop all of that in there.
Do you open that top?
So you crack the,
No, you don't have
the yellow line right before you gas it up?
Yeah, just to take the air out of the line, the yellow line.
Did you have both of those closed, the high and the lower closed?
Yes.
Yeah, high and low is closed. We put a little bit more than 5. He purged the the pressure out of the yellow.
So you're charging to the low, right?
So right now, I open up the high, and I'm letting it go in through the high side, and then since it's not gonna bring all of it down in there,
You already
since
went
of a
most
whole-
of it.
yeah, since most of it will go down in there, now when I turn the compressor on,
We let it go.
I'll
through
let it go through the low side, finish it off.
So one thing I hear you say, you know, I don't know what that compressor is, but I know that when you get a new compressor, sometimes you have to turn that plug from the straight up and down position to the sideways position before it will plug up.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're right.
Some of them.
I've had that
Now,
morning.
because of that right there, that's usually why you put a little extra in the cylinder, because you're gonna lose just a little bit. Unless you use the right tool, which is the one that cuts off the pipe. See, most of it, yeah.
Charge the rest through the low.
I'm gonna finish the rest of it through the low side, once the compressor pumps it comes
Turn
down.
it on now. Plug it in.
I just plug it in right now. We wait a couple of seconds.
All right.
You'll hear it clicking, and it should kick in.
There you go.